Okay, good morning once again. Now let us now officially start our class. Today we are looking at chapter 5. Today we shall be looking at measuring purchasing and supply performance. Measuring purchasing and supply performance. Today we are going to discuss what we need to do so that we can measure our supply chain all the way from upstream to downstream. From upstream to downstream. How do we measure our supply chains so that we can monitor and evaluate our progress? Are we on the right track? Tumepotea? Or is everything okay? That is what we are going to look at today. Let us start with the basic definitions. Purchasing performance measurement. This refers to how well the purchasing department is performing in the activities they are expected to perform against the budget that is in place for the department. This is what we call measuring purchasing performance. This refers to determining how the purchasing department is performing in the activities they are expected to perform against the budget. As a department, as a purchasing department, we are given a budget by the organization. Are we doing our activities? Are we carrying out our activities within the budget prescribed by the organization? Or we are spending more than the budget or below the budget, which is obviously better, what we call cost savings. As a purchasing department, are we helping the company to save costs, or we are operating above our budget? That's what we call purchasing performance measurement. We can also say this is the process of measuring the efficiency and the speed of procurement terms with the goals of increasing visibility and enhancing the value of procurement within an organization. How is our procurement department adding value to the entire organization? That is performance measurement. As a department, are we a benefit? Are we a resource to the company? Or we are a liability? Are we helping the company to achieve its goals? Are we helping the organization to achieve its goals? Or we are making things worse in terms of efficiency and the speed of buying materials for the organization? Efficiency, here we look at the cost saving. Are we helping the company to reduce costs over time, or we are increasing the cost of doing business? Then we also look at speed of procurement. As an organization, are we buying materials within the prescribed time limits? Or we have delays? Are we causing delays when we are acquiring raw materials? Are we having situations where we have delays in the sourcing of raw materials? Or everything we are buying is within the prescribed time limits? Remember, if we have delays, this will cause customer complaints. And also companies' operations will be interrupted. Our organization's operations will be adversely interrupted if we have disruptions and delays. That's how we define purchasing performance measurement. Performance measurement uses four main criteria. When we are measuring our performance, we use four measurement indicators. Number one, what we call purchasing efficiency, purchasing effectiveness, purchasing functionality, and lastly, we look at the performance of the department as a whole. Purchasing efficiency, this has to do with cost now. Efficiency is concerned with the cost, while effectiveness is concerned with time. Now, for efficiency, we look at how well the purchasing department is performing its activities according to the expected budget. In the activities they are expected to perform against the budget that is in place for the department. Efficiency, our concern is cost savings. Are we operating within our budget? Are we saving money for the company? Or we are increasing cost of doing business for the organization? Efficiency. If the purchasing costs are within the budget, then the efficiency of the purchasing department will exceed expectations. If the department is using funds over and above the budget, then the purchasing function is not efficient. That is very important. If we are allocated a budget of 10 million shillings, and then we increase that budget to 15 million shillings, it means our department is operating inefficiently. Our department is not adding value to the success and well-being of the organization. It will mean that our department is actually the source of the problem. That is what it shall mean. Our department is the problem, the source of our problems as a company. The company is not achieving its objectives because of our department. And this will not be good for the organization. But if we perform within the budget we have been allocated, even if we save money, it means the department is operating efficiently. But if we exceed our budget, over and above our budget, then it means our department is not efficient. And the company will not achieve its objectives because somewhere cost of doing business is going up. The company will be making a lot of money, a lot of profit, but much of the profit, a large chunk of the profit, a large percentage of the profit will be eaten up by these operating costs, high operating costs, making our department less efficient. That's what we call efficiency. Now let us look at purchasing effectiveness. Efficiency here we shall look at time. How well is the department operating within the prescribed time limits? Here we have what we call inventory turnover ratio. To measure time, we look at what we call inventory turnover ratio. This ratio measures the number of times the inventory is used. How often do we need materials? How often do we need to buy new supplies from our suppliers? We also call it the replenishment cycle. How often do we need to place new orders? Now, it is against this that we measure our performance. We shall now measure our purchasing department. Are we buying and supplying materials to the company within the prescribed time limits? Are we operating within the prescribed time limits? If we should place our orders with our suppliers within 3 weeks, is this happening? Or do we have delays? Instead of 3 weeks, are we buying new materials within 5 to 6 weeks? On the same note, we also look at whether we are saving time. If we should be operating within 3 weeks, are we so efficient that we even take 2 weeks instead of 3 weeks? Which should be the norm. That's what we call effectiveness. Then we have purchasing functionality. Purchasing functionality. The primary function of the purchasing department is to provide the correct items at the required time at the lowest possible costs. To achieve this, we look at factors such as supplier stability, material quality issues, and the supplier discounts. Remember, we are measuring if our purchasing department is functioning as intended. Is our purchasing department giving us value? Is the purchasing department adding value? To get that, we look at supplier stability. How stable are our supply networks? How stable are our supply networks? What is our relationship with our suppliers? Is it stable? Do we have reliable suppliers? Are we engaging in the services of reliable suppliers? We also look at the quality issues, material quality issues. Is our department buying raw materials of the right quality? Remember, if we get it wrong, the finished product will also be of poor and compromised quality standards. So we measure. It's what we are getting, the right quality and the standards. And lastly, we have what we call performance measurements. This is where now, as a purchasing department, we come up with various mechanisms to measure what we are doing on the ground. How now do we practically measure? How do we practically measure if we are saving cost, if we are saving time? How do we measure if our department is adding value to the overall organization? How do we practically measure that? For example, number one, we can do what we call cost savings. We measure if the department is saving cost savings. We can also do what we call vendor performance. We measure how our suppliers are performing. Are they average? above average, or below average, or poor, or now excellent, our suppliers. So those are the 4 elements of performance measurement: efficiency, effectiveness, functionality, and performance. Anyone with a question? Anyone with a question? Ana Kosawa, Damaris, na Abdullahi. Are we okay? I know you have the course outline. And by the way, this is the second last chapter. This unit is very small. This is the second last chapter. After today, we have 1 unit remaining. Imagine issues. After this, we have 1 thing remaining. Imagine issues and trends in strategic purchasing and supplies. And remember what we said. For those who came and joined us late, remember we said, tukimaliza, we shall start from chapter 1. Remember, there are those of us who are not with us when we were doing chapter 1 and chapter 2. So tukimaliza, come October, we start now chapter 1. Tutaanza chapter 1 tena, pale kwa introduction. So you inform the others, those who missed on chapter 1 and 2. We shall very soon repeat that. Now let us look at measurement. How do we measure purchasing performance? What criteria can we use to measure purchasing performance? Number 1, we can look at the true cost. This is where we assess the cost of the products acquired by the purchasing department. Remember, we have something we call the 5 R's of purchasing. 5 R's of purchasing: right to price, right to quality, right to quantity, right to price, right to time. So now here we look at the right to price. Is the purchasing department acquiring raw materials for the organization at the right price? This is the first way of measuring if the purchasing department is performing or not. And that's why we say right price. We don't say the lowest price. We say right price. Because sometimes buying cheaper products is not always a useful measure of performance. If raw materials do not meet quality standards or services, do not meet expectations, they are costed to a company, whatever the original price. So sometimes if we buy materials at the lowest price, this will compromise the quality of the finished product, meaning that customers will not be satisfied with the products and they will not buy more. So we don't look at the lowest price, we look at the right price. So as a company, to measure if our department is adding value or not, we calculate the true cost of services, the true cost of acquiring raw materials, and compare that to the returns. How much are we earning as a company? We compare the cost of acquiring raw materials vis-a-vis the returns. We also look at the cost of transport. How many customer complaints are we getting? When we compare all those costs, we are able to determine and get an accurate view of your purchasing performance. The cost of acquiring raw materials, the cost of operations, This includes the cost of transport. We also look at the complaints, customer complaints, the cost of customer complaints. And then we compare that with our returns, the profits. How much money are we getting from the finished product? That is what we call measuring the true cost. We call that measuring the true cost of doing business. And this will help us to determine if our department is adding value to the company or not. Then we have the second one, how to measure the performance of our department. This is what we call savings. We look at the savings. This is where we assess the savings made by the department as the business grows. This is a simple yet effective method of evaluating a business purchasing department. We assess the savings made by the department. Is our department consuming money or helping the company to save money and the cost? Are you helping the company and the organization to save money, or you are consuming a lot of the company's resources? Remember, the economy of scale. Remember, we have the concept we call economies of scale. This is the advantage a company gets for producing in large quantities. The economy of scale states that a larger production should bring savings, what you call in the production process. The more you produce, the lower the cost of production. And this should reflect even in the acquisition of raw materials. When you are dealing with your suppliers as an organization, as a company, the more you buy from a supplier, it should automatically translate to the lower cost of acquisition. The more you buy, the lower the price. That should be the trend. The more you buy, the higher the quantity discount. You should negotiate with your suppliers so that as you acquire more raw materials, you get quantity discount. If you buy 10,000 items at 9 shillings, then you order 100,000 items. It is basic knowledge that the price should go down. You cannot buy 10,000 items at 9 bob, and then you buy 100,000 items at the same 9 bob. Then you buy 1 million items at the same 9 bob. No, it means something somewhere is wrong. You should negotiate at the demand for a quantity discount from your supplier. If that happens, it means your purchasing department is not working as well as it should. That's what we call savings. Any purchasing department in any organization should help the company to reduce the cost of doing business, all the way from reducing the cost of production to reducing the cost of acquiring raw materials. So if your department is not helping the company to save cost, it means it is a liability to the organization. And it will not help the company achieve its objectives. Then we have something else we call inventory flow. You can measure the flow of inventory. The flow of inventory, this is where we look at the rate at which materials are coming into the organization. How often are you making your orders? This is what we call the flow of materials. You can also measure the flow of incoming materials. The number of times your stock turns over during an evaluation period will help you determine how agile and effective your business is. If the material is not flowing in, it means there is a problem. Remember, the business will only make money if we acquire materials that we convert into finished products. The frequency, we also call this the traffic. Remember, for a business to benefit, the traffic should be high. We should be buying more so often. That means what we have bought has been consumed and it has been sold to the customer. So the traffic, the frequency should be high. If the frequency is low, it means there's a problem. It means our materials are not getting to the customers. That's not a good indicator. It will mean that there is something wrong with our purchasing department. And lastly, the last measure of performance is what we call transportation. Remember, sometimes we can buy materials at the right price. We reduce cost when we are doing production. We achieve economies of scale when we are doing production. But now when it comes to the transportation of the materials, we mess up. We mess up, and the price of product will increase. Sometimes we might mess up increasing the cost of the products, and that will not add value to the organization. So we are also advised, as a way of measuring the performance of the purchasing department, let us reduce the cost of doing business. Let us reduce the cost of doing business. Let us reduce the cost of transportation, logistics costs. Remember, this is where we are transferring the finished product from our companies' warehouses to the final consumer, most probably through several intermediaries, what we call channels of distribution. How effective are our channels of distribution, and how are they helping us to reduce costs? A channel of distribution, you can have people like wholesalers, distribution agents, retailers, then to the final customer. And remember, everybody along the channel of distribution must get their share of profit. So the more channels of distribution we use, the higher the selling price. This might be a setback to the organization. So we should also scrutinize and evaluate that to measure whether we are performing or not. So those are the various methods we can use to measure if our purchasing department is adding value to the organization or not. Anyone with a question? Any question?